a death battle with a level playing field, two challengers from the world of A Song of Ice and Fire are going head-to-head in a battle of brawn, brain, and leadership. You the fans have voted, and your champion's chosen. Going head-to-head today is the young wolf Robb Stark versus the Maid of Tarth herself, Brienne. Let's meet our combatants. Robb Stark was born the oldest son of Lord Eddard and Lady Catelyn Stark, making him the heir to Winterfell and all of the North. When his father went to King's Landing to act as Hand of the King, Robb took on the role of acting Lord in his absence, but upon hearing that his father was falsely arrested by Queen Cersei for treason, Robb called his father's bannermen and marched south to declare war on the Lannisters. Robb proved himself to be an incredible tactician on the battlefield, winning every single battle and even succeeding in capturing one of Westeros' deadliest warriors. After his father was executed, people rallied behind him even further, resurrecting and bestowing him with the ancient title of the King in the North. However, even after doing everything right on the battlefield, Robb's decision to break a political promise to House Frey ended up costing him the war and his life. For a kid of only 15, Robb showed experience way beyond his years during the War of the Five Kings. He was able to inspire a nation of Northerners and earn the respect and following of men several times his age. Robb was able to manage and use his troops' different strengths on the battlefield, like some sort of crazy champion StarCraft player, and all while doing it from the front lines. Robb's track record off the battlefield is a different story that really all comes down to him being so young and inexperienced, too busy looking forward at the enemies ahead, while not realizing that it was his opposed allies to either side of him that helped orchestrate his downfall. Robb's naive nature and inability to see the bigger picture or the consequences of his actions was what ultimately lost him everything. But let's not forget that no matter how young, a wolf is still a wolf. Brienne was born on the Isle of Tarth in the Stormlands, the only surviving child of Lord Selwyn Tarth. She showed a great interest in swordplay and fighting, but was mistreated by others due to her unladylike appearance and personality. Eventually, a man named Humphrey Wagstaff showed an interest in marriage with her, if only for her father's wealthy lands, but she refused to marry anyone who couldn't beat her in combat. So, Sir Wagstaff left Tarth without a fiancé and some broken ribs. Brienne was fostered at Storm's End, where she fell in love with Renly Baratheon, because, well, he was the only guy who ever treated her with any sort of decency. Years later, she supported his claim to the crown all the way up until his death, and even served in his personal guard. After which, she joined Catelyn Stark and was tasked with making the prisoner exchange of Jaime for Arya and Sansa. Alright, now let's make no mistake here. Brienne is an absolute beast. She has an extremely keen eye for her opponent's movements, and the patience to wait for the right time to strike. Her weakness comes from, well, most people not really wanting anything to do with her, and the effect that that's had on her whole life. But, will the Beauty of Tarth be able to deliver a knockout hit, or will the King of the North's Wolfbite take out his competition? This is the honor of the North versus the loyalty of the South. First up is physical prowess. Thrown into a one-on-one melee, who would win with no outside help? A quick disclaimer, just so there's no confusion, Westeros Brawls is an animal companion-free zone, at least for the time being. This means that Grey Wind can't help Robb at all here. He's on his own. Robb grew up learning swordplay from Winterfell's Master-at-Arms Sir Roderick Castle, training with his half-brother Jon and foster-brother Theon. During his days on the battlefield, he favored a slightly shorter-than-average castle-forged longsword. Being considerably above average in skill for a boy his age, Robb earns a 6.5 in strength, a 6 in dexterity, and a 6.5 in constitution. Similar to Robb, Brienne was trained by Evenfall Hall's Master-at-Arms Sir Goodwin. She wields the Valyrian longsword Oathkeeper, which is somewhat awkwardly made from Robb's dead dad's sword, Ice. Brienne is described in the books as having near superhuman strength and resilience, with the training and skill behind her to make her exceptionally quick on her feet. She gets a 9 in strength, an 8 in dexterity, and an 8.5 in constitution. So, Brienne's score of 25.5 crushes Robb's score of 19, and here's why. While I have to give massive kudos to Robb for leading the charge in the battlefield, he was protected by his personal vanguard at all times while doing so. A team consisting of some of the greatest warriors from both the North and the Riverlands. I'm not saying that he's by any means incompetent, I'm just saying that he probably still could have been with a group like this protecting him. I mean, if you were a Lannister footman, would you want to attack the guy protected by members of House Umber, Mormont, Karstark, Mallister, and Glover, not to mention a wolf the size of a horse? Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'll go fight some scrub at the back, thanks. Robb just isn't used to fighting independently like Brienne is, who excels in one-on-one fights like this. Weaponry is also going to push this even more in favor of Brienne. Because Oathkeeper is made of Valyrian steel, it's going to be lighter and easier to wield, enabling her to make way faster attacks than Robb can. Not much of a competition on this one, sorry Robb. Second is mental prowess. Who would be the best at outwitting and outplaying the other? Robb's ability to use his various Protoss units to break through Tywin's Terran defense was what ultimately got him through to the semifinals at BlizzCon last year. I mean, win all those battles to push the Lannister forces back into the west. In all seriousness, though, it was Robb's ability to place and divide his troops effectively on the battlefield that made his strategies so sound, and even though I'm sure a lot of this was the counsel of his more experienced bannermen, he was the one that ultimately called the shots. However, Robb had a knack for trusting the wrong people, like, a lot. His practical strategies earned him a 7 in intelligence, but a combination of naivety and an unshakable desire to do what's morally right, but not always what's most effective, earns him a 2 in intuition. But, credit where credit's due, he went into this whole thing with a lot of courage and determination, even if he lost sight of that every once in a while, giving him a 6 in will. It's interesting, because Brienne actually suffers from a lot of the same pitfalls as Robb in this category. She comes in scoring a little bit lower with a 5 in intelligence, but her experiences with the cruel outside world have earned her considerably more street smarts. When it comes to will, her emotional issues because of that cruelty have caused her to cling to the morals of being a true knight, but she's often unfocused in what her purpose is, giving her a 6 in will. So, that means that these two, who both bear some sometimes misguided and often gullible hearts of gold, end up tying with a 15 apiece in this category. And last up, of course, is political prowess. Robb at the start of his campaign was able to feign his way into looking way more confident than he really was in front of his men, inspiring many to follow him into war despite his young age. And while this far from got him out of every situation he was in, he earns a 7 in charisma. Robb was pronounced the king of both the Riverlands and the North, but the former was in a total state after the war, and the latter he kinda lost pretty early on. Status? Well, being a king of half a continent and a rebel to the other half earns Robb a 6 in this category. Brienne, although kind-hearted and honorable, is unfortunately plagued in this category by the way others see her unsightly and unfeminine appearance and mannerisms. Sadly only getting a 1 in charisma and a 3 in status. But hey, her family lands of Tarth being financially decent gets her a 5 in wealth. And it looks like Brienne gets wrecked here by Robb even worse than he did against her in physical prowess. 20-9 in favor of him. So, with Brienne winning the physical, them tying for mental, and Robb winning the political, it looks like we have our first categorical tie. Which means that the overall winner is decided by who has the higher overall Brawler Score out of 90. And this means that Robb takes the win with a 54, with Brienne falling just lower at 49.5. It's easily the closest matchup we've had so far, but Robb's decent average across the board wins out over Brienne's more lopsided scores. An extremely well-fought loss for the Maid of Tarth, and a victory for the King in the North. Thank you all very much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more Westeros Brawls, and put the name of a character you'd like to see down below in the comments. The 2 characters with the most votes are going head-to-head next time on Westeros Brawls.